Absolutely. Okay. If both teams are ready, we'll begin. You want to hit record there?
Fire when ready, Jerry.
Here we go. Toss up one. One character in this essay tells a long, embarrassing anecdote about covering his wife's nude body with a sombrero so a plumber can help her after she's sucked into a toilet by a powerful sewage system, which turns out to be a terrible setup for a one-line joke. In one scene in this essay, the stuck-up Mona deceitfully tells a waiter that it's her birthday, even though it's actually the birthday of her table-mate Alice. An essay by Frank Conroy is quoted throughout this work to explicate an attitude dubbed pampering. This essay ends with the narrator going into a visionary trance during the performance of a cool hypnotist named Nigel Ellery. Its narrator attends a lecture given by Scott Peterson in the Rainbow Room and becomes infatuated with the maid Petra while staying in cabin 1009. This essay begins with the narrator waiting at Fort Lauderdale Airport to board the Zenith, which is renamed
A supposedly fun thing I'll never do again.
He created a golden chain long enough to stretch from heaven to earth, and he then climbed down the chain, carrying with him a bag containing a snail shell, a white hen, a black cat, and a palm nut. We're going to teach Nicholas Ornisha, called the King of the White Cloth, who used those items to create land on earth and shaped claims to humans, which had life flowing into them like the screen god of the ruling cloud.
Eshu?
No, this is Obatala. The place where Obatala landed and created the first humans was this ancient Nigerian city, which thus became the first village from which all Yoruban culture spread.
Kano?
It's Ife. Olorun sends this creature down to check on the progress of Obatala. In Bantu religions, this creature is sent by God to tell humans they will live forever, but a lizard makes it to Earth faster and tells humans they will die. God then gave this creature the ability to change its color to match its environment so it can hide on Earth.
Chameleon?
10 points. Toss up 2. Early in his career, this man surrendered while serving as battalion commander at Boland's Mills, but his death sentence was rescinded because he'd been born in America. After 3 years of being out of office, this politician regained power largely because of a crisis over the mother and child scheme, toppled the inter-party government of John Costello. This man was the main author of a constitution that controversially guaranteed freedom of religious worship in its 44th article and banned divorce. His outrage over the treaty courts led him to resign and rebel against the government of W.T. Cosgrave. As a result, he formulated his idea of external association to oppose the Treaty of 1921, which made him a rival of the faction led by Michael Collins. Under his new constitution in 1937, he created and accepted the position of Taoiseach. For 10 points.
Amon de Valera?
Your bonus. This disease is often diagnosed according to the Rotterdam criteria for 10 points each. Name this disease in which excessive androgen production in infected women can cause hirsutism and acne, undesirable side effects which are combated by taking oral contraceptives. Yeah. The ratio of this endocrine hormone to FSH is elevated in women with polycystic ovary syndrome. It aids the development of the corpus luteum and surges during ovulation.
LH?
Yeah. Women with the disease do poorly on this test, in which patients are given a sweet drink and have their blood taken every half hour to check blood concentration of the namesake substance. A similar test is given to pregnant women to screen for gestational diabetes.
Insulin.
It's called the glucose tolerance test. Or GT. You got 20 points on the bonus, toss it for 3. This religious sect holds that the world originated when a deity created a white pearl, placed it in the mouth of a white dove named Enfer, and then waited 40,000 years. This sect teaches that its believers can never dwell in any place where lettuce is grown. One of their holy figures wept for 7,000 years and filled 7 jars with his tears, which put out the fires of hell. Their writings include collections of hymns known as calls, and a central book which tells of the 7 mysteries, the most important of whom is the peacock angel.
Yazidi?
Your bonus, answer the following about Lithuanian politicians in the early 20th century for 10 points each. Shh. In December of 1917, the son of a Polish aristocrat born in Vilnius was appointed by Lenin to be Commissar for Internal Affairs and head of the Chekha. He employed Gotthard Peters as a deputy and remained head of chief of Chekhov's operations after he was converted to the GPU, a branch of the NKVD.
Not Trotsky, inspection, I don't know. Let's just say Kirov.
What do you got?
Kirov?
What's Dzerzhinsky? Vinkas Nikiticius Kapsukas was the leader of the Lithuanian Soviet Socialist Republic starting in 1918. That republic was chased out of Vilnius by the Polish army and had to set up base in this current capital, Belarus, before it was chased out of there too. This publisher of the paper Lithuania's Echo became the first president of the Republic of Lithuania in 1919. He returned to power a second time in a coup in 1926 and ran a one-party authoritarian state in Lithuania from 1926 to 1940 when he tried to fail to oppose the invading Soviet army.
Jagiello.
It's Anton Smetona. 10 points. Toss-up 4. The integral from which this quantity is sometimes calculated can contain infinite terms known as Van Hoek singularities, which occur when the group velocity is 0. The oscillation in this quantity, and therefore all quantities that depend on it, such as magnetization, is induced by increasing the degeneracy of Landau levels via the increasing applied magnetic field in the de Haas-Van-Alphen effect. In the Debye model of heat conduction, this quantity for phonons is proportional to...
That's game state.
Your bonus. Answer the following about experimental jazz for 10 points each. This composer included a DJ scratching on a turntable in his influential crossover hit, Rocket. He pioneered, that's spelled R-O-C-K-I-T. He pioneered jazz funk in his band, the Headhunters.
It's Hurricane. Yeah.
It is. Albert Ayler helped pioneer this type of jazz in the 1950s that was based on improvisation instead of established harmonies or chords. It took its name from an album by Ornette Coleman, who pioneered in albums such as The Shape of Jazz to Come. That's free jazz. This saxophonist combined free jazz and traditional Jewish melodies in this ensemble, Masada. He reworked music by Ennio Morricone in his album The Big Gun Down and led the avant-garde band Naked City.
Whatever you think it is.
No, it's John Zorn. That's 10 on the bonus. 5. Note, type of piece and composer needed. In one of these pieces, a spooky theme in the scherzo is reprised with the left hand playing staccato, while the right hand plays legato offset half a beat. Another of these pieces contains a theme with octave intervals with frequent sforzandi, nicknamed the Beast, which is defeated by the other theme, the Beauty. The andante favori movement of one of these pieces was discarded and say again? Yeah.
Nice.
Sorry, I just can't hear.
Yes, sorry.
Your bonus. Lafcadio Hearn relates that this woman spared the woodcutter Nino Kichi despite him committing the cardinal sin of telling his future wife about this woman for 10 points each. Named as succubus from Japanese folklore, who uses her frost breath to finish off people who are unlucky enough to get trapped in snowstorms in the first place.
Yuki Onna.
Indeed. Yuki Onna belongs to a subset of Japanese spirits, or yokai, that lack these body parts, a common trait of Japanese ghosts. Consequently, kabuki actors depicting them have used extra long kimonos or cones.
Like limbs.
Prompt you, I guess.
Legs.
Yeah. This other species of yokai hangs out in rivers and ponds and sucks up the souls of its victims through their rectums. They have scaly wet hands and firmly a wet cranial plate.
Yes.
Kappa.
30 points. Toss of 6. The American philosopher Alexander Bryan Johnson proposed an operational theory of this concept, which partly titles his 1854 work about this idea. In his Mind in the World Order, C.I. Lewis outlined 4 modes of this concept, which he further divided between the polyphrastic and analytic instantiations. Michael Dummett published 2 essays, both asking in the title, "What is a theory of this concept?" in which he argued against the true conditional theory.
Meaning.
Nice.
What is a theory of meaning? Your bonus. This character gives a dazzling speech on the history of fortifications in his first appearance in Antwerp Central Station, and the narrator later learns that he's an art history professor obsessed with monumental public buildings for 10 points each. Named this title character of a 2001 novel, who was adopted by a Welsh minister's family but goes to Prague to investigate his parents' stay under Nazi rule after having an epiphany in the ladies' waiting room of the Liverpool station.
So things like here.
E. Thomas.
It's Jacques Austerlitz. Jacques Austerlitz is the title character of the novel by this German author, who's best known for using black and white photographs in his novels such as The Rings of Saturn and The Emigrants. Yeah,
Schroeder.
it's W.G. Sebald.
Yeah.
One notable part of the Rings of Saturn concerns searching for the skull of this 17th century English writer in the Medical Museum of New Norfolk and Norwich Hospitals.
Shakespeare.
Sir Thomas Browne.
That's
So
so.
such a,
Toss up 7. Women who live in this place always carry during summer feathered plumes the same color as their pubic hair and wear clothes corresponding to the season. Clocks are banned from this location, which prohibits any attempt to tell time or count hours. A long injunction forbidding attorneys, usurers, bigots, and fat chuff cats from admission is inscribed on this location's entrance gate. Fortifications called Arctic, Anatole, and Mesembrine are among the 6 giant towers built on the 6 corners of this hexagonal building, which was constructed as a reward for a man who... Your bonus. In a classic example of this technique, 1-chlorooctane and aqueous sodium cyanide fully react in 2 to 3 hours. Instead of doing nothing together for days, an ordinary ammonium salt is added. Again, each name this technique that speeds up reactions by bringing reactants from the organic to the aqueous layer or vice versa. Phase transfer catalyses are difficult to perform in reactions with this ion, a basic anion whose concentration is often expressed as 14 minus the pH. The illustrious Polish chemist Mieczysław Makosa elucidated this PTC mechanism in which an organic acid is deprotonated at the boundary between the aqueous and organic layers before being brought into the organic phase.
Oh no. Ivy Wilkins.
No, this is called the interfacial mechanism.
Oh yeah.
20 points on those. Topic 8. This thinker wrote that Jews flourished in science because living within Christian societies made them more skeptical of established ideas in his essay, The Intellectual Preeminence of Jews in Modern Europe. This thinker argued that ownership began when warriors in primitive societies started habitually seizing female captives in essays such as The Beginnings of Ownership. He wrote that the relative lateness of Germany's industrialization enabled it to borrow knowledge from Britain without being hampered by existing obsolete infrastructure, an example of what he called the penalty of taking the lead. This economist argued that business leaders keep prices artificially high by sabotaging production, in contrast to industrial workers such as engineers or... Your bonus. This theory aims to prevent crime, especially in high-rise apartment buildings, by using an environmental design that gives community residents a sense of personal responsibility for their neighborhood, such as by installing resident surveillance systems. For example, Gaines' criminological theory, formulated by architect Oscar Newman in the 1972 in the namesake book, which says that urban planners must design cities to create an autonomous, crime-free environment.
You know, what's it called? Like, no, that's not what it is. City View.
No, this is the defensible space.
Yeah, right.
Defensible space is tied to this urban planning movement that's sprung up in cities like Detroit and Cleveland around 1900, together with the Garden City of New Britain. The Macmillan Plan for Washington, D.C. is part of this movement, which stresses creating parks and grandiose governmental buildings to install civic virtue in people. The inspiration and showcase of the City Beautiful movement was this 1893 event where a grand scale of white city filled with streetlights was created in Chicago. This event also featured the original Ferris wheel.
It's the Columbian Expedition. So it's the White City part of the Columbian Expedition in Chicago.
Yeah. The Columbian Exposition is what I was looking for. You got 20 points.
What's hard?
Toss-up 9. This general once demonstrated his point by asking a great warrior to pull out the tail of an old horse, and when he did, good Sertorius. Your bonus. The Thucydides of Alexandria writes that these persons were never able to acquire full citizenship, and Thucydides writes that a notable colony of men was stationed at Lepreon for 10 points each. Given this term, which was used in Sparta to describe helots who were awarded their freedom, usually as a result of serving as hoplites in the Spartan army.
It's your time.
What do you got?
Super health.
Okay, these are called neo-Damodites. The term neo-Damodites may have originated to refer to those who came after taking part in the exhibition of this Spartan commander, this great general of the Archidanian War, routed the Athenian general Cleon at the Battle of Amphipolis, though both he and Cleon died in the process.
Say whatever you think it is.
Yeah. This Greek historian writes that Agesilaus and Lysander took a force of 2,000 Neo-Tamadites on the expedition to Asia against Helena. He also wrote about the Persian expedition of Cyrus in his Anabasis. 20 points. Toss up 10. The original derivation of this result was based on a variational principle termed the principle of least dissipation of energy. One of this result's first applications was to replicate the work of Bridgman and Lorentz on the Nernst-Ebbinghaus effects. The original article deriving this result noted that in cases of phenomena such as the Ricci-Leduc effect and the Hall effect, resulting from the influence of Coriolis and magnetic forces, this result will fail to hold. These equations were derived using their namesake's regression hypothesis and provided the theoretical explanation for the relationship between the Peltier and Seebeck coefficients. For 10 points, identify these equations, often heralded as the fourth law of thermodynamics, which state that the kinetic
On-state reciprocal relations?
the Oscar relations. You're welcome. Two of these works named for the same English lord are given the appellation small caliber and large caliber, while the Sistine one features two cherubs that often appear on postcards for templates each. Name this group of works on the same subject by the same artist that includes paintings titled after the Tempi, Alba, and Aldobrandini families.
So the Madonna. Who did this? Who did this name Madonna? Like, I don't know this.
What do you got for me?
Madonna's by Da Vinci.
By who?
Da Vinci.
No, it's Madonna's by Raphael.
Balls.
Raphael painted this Madonna for the marriage of Lorenzo Nasi. It takes its name from the animal symbolizing Christ's passion that the baby Jesus strokes in the foreground. Yeah. Raphael's 1507 painting of the Madonna and Child with St. John the Baptist at the Louvre is best known by this name. This work is usually considered the high point of Renaissance Madonnas and was completed by Rinaldo del Ghirlandaio after Raphael left it unfinished.
What's another notable one?
We got
Don Juan next.
La Belle Jardiniere. That was 10 points on bonus and half.
At the half, I have a score of Penn with 130 and Yale with 120.
Yep, concur.
Perfect. Here we go, toss of 11. Howard Barnstone and Eugene Aubrey were hired to help finish this building after an argument with the original architect. Outside this building, there is a Corten steel sculpture dedicated to Martin Luther King Jr. that was removed from Washington, D.C. in 1967 for resembling a fragmented Washington monument. Barnett Newman's broken obelisk. 10 points. Your bonus. This poet repeated the image of a Jew in a newspaper hat that dances weeping down the Lord in a poem that ends every stanza by describing the man that lies in the house of Bedlam. For 10 points each, in this poem he based visits to St. Elizabeth on trips to Ezra Pound's asylum. This poem began one word, oh, but it is dirty, and ended another poem with a stanza declaring, too pretty, dreamlike mimicry.
Say whatever you want.
Elizabeth Bishop wrote this villanelle, whose speaker uses 4 different lines ending with the word disaster and repeats a refrain that asserts losing is in part to master art. In this Bishop poem, the speaker recalls a sensation of falling off the round turning world as a 6-year-old girl while she was looking at the cover of National Geographic. This poem is set during the speaker's visit to the dentist's office with her aunt Consuelo in Worcester, Massachusetts. In the waiting room, you get 10 points. Toss up 12. This character discusses a future time when priests are more in word than matter, and bawds and whores do churches build, in a strange oracular speech that concludes, this prophecy Merlin shall make, for I lived before his time. In his first scene, this character asks, may not an ass know when the cart draws the horse, after singing the hedge sparrow fed the cuckoo so long that it had its head bit off by its young. This character was notably omitted in Nathan Tate's version of the play, and responds to another man's,
Like Lear's Pool.
Nice.
your bonus. Cooper's method is an algorithm to eliminate these symbols from formulas and can be used to show the decidability of Pressburger arithmetic for 10 points each. Identify these symbols, which are used to extend the propositional calculus to include concepts like for each and there exists.
Quantifiers, yeah. Quantifiers.
That's right. Quantification is allowed over properties as well as over individual variable terms in this technological system.
First or second? I think it's this kind of second order logic.
That's right. It can be shown that second-order logic, unlike first-order logic, does not have this property, the converse of soundness, with respect to standard model theoretic semantics, though it does have it with respect to Henkin semantics. This property means that every sentence that is a tautological consequence of the premises is deducible from those premises.
Validity.
Yo, it's confusing.
Sorry.
20 points. Class of 13. The creator of this structure claims that he built it as an homage to his Sweet 16, perhaps a reference to the 16-year-old girl Agnes Scoffs, who rejected his marriage proposals before he contracted tuberculosis. This structure is home to the Moon Fountain, a pool with a 6-pointed star in the middle, which sits in front of the north wall, capped by the 30-ton stone, designed to model the king's chamber of Khufu's Great Pyramid. It was originally called a Rock Gate Park, referring to a 9-ton gate at this place, so perfectly balanced on its axis that it can be pushed open with one finger. Its creator claims he built this structure with a perpetual motion machine after his TV was cured by magnets, and its entrance features a sign that reads, "You will be seeing unusual accomplishment." Its creator, Edward Leedskalman, an immigrant from Latvia, made this structure out of oolitic limestone after buying a plot of land in the Everglades. For 10 points in this castle in Florida, a tourist attraction which appears to be made out of the native marine material.
Coral Castle.
Yes!
What the shit?
Here's your bonus. Whew. For much of his life, this composer entertained Sunday congregations at St. Clotilde by playing improvisations on the organ for 10 points each. Named this composer who rocked the musical world with a beautiful melody played by English horn over harps and strings in the allegretto of his Symphony in D minor. At the opening, an opening oboe cantilena is brought back at the end of this most famous organ piece by Franck, in which a powerful Lent section bridges the first two of the three main synth parts. We got
The tripartite.
No, it's called Prelude, Fugue, and Variation. This composer stormed off after premiering Franck's piano quintet, jealous that he had been rebuffed by Franck's close female friend Augusta Holmes. His most famous symphony is his third, which features the pipe organ.
So it's not fine, right? That's weird, that's okay.
Whatever you think it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
20. Okay, toss of 14. This kingdom was split in two by the Chianti Agreement, with its eastern half led by King Paolo III, and the western half by Monk Kubumi. The most powerful king of this polity set up a royal burial complex at Imogiri. Its first king, Senopati, established this state by conquering the Pajang kingdom in the north.
Was Ayutthaya.
That's incorrect. The so-called old version of this polity began when a linga was erected by King Sanjaya in 732 AD. That old version merged with the Sailendra kingdom. Both versions of this kingdom had its capital at Kota Gede, a booming silver town, though it also had a thriving center at Yogyakarta. The greatest ruler of this kingdom, Sultan Agung, fought against the Dutch East India Company by launching several failed sieges of Batavia. For 10 points, named this Islamic Sultanate, which ruled from the 1500s through the 1700s, the last great empire on Java prior to colonization.
Madhapad.
No, it's Mataram.
Oh, okay.
I literally just missed that.
Next toss-up. This is toss-up 15, after we're building out a score here. A 1997 article by McNamara Webb et al. Demonstrated a general method for calculating these from decision-making errors. The ideal redistribution model developed by Kretlov and Lucas is an example of this concept, and Parker and McNair derived one of these for the scramble competition as applied to engine brood competition. Graphing relied on this concept to construct a model of Zahavi's handicap principle, and demonstrated that under certain assumptions, honest signaling had this property. This concept was first formalized in a paper by George Price and John Maynard Smith, titled The Logic of Animal Conflict, and William Hamilton and Robert May argued against Vera Wynne-Edwards' hypothesis that populations regulate by dispersing less fit individuals by demonstrating a dispersal pattern modeled by this type of strategy.
Like an evolutionarily stable.
That's right.
Nice.
Your bonus. This essay essay praises Fine axiological structure of the world for its development of the conceptual side of the title discipline, and argues that the observation sentence is key to the relationship between concept and doctrine. And quotes each identify this philosophical theme and argues that the title branch of philosophy should be seen as a chapter of psychology and hence of science.
Modern moral philosophy?
Epistemology Naturalized was written by this Harvard philosopher who argued against the analytic synthetic distinction between two dogmas of empiricism.
Klein.
In Epistemology Naturalized, Klein argues that the Vienna Circle did not take this concept seriously enough. According to Klein, despite Duhame's observation that theoretical sentences have their evidence as larger blocks of theory, we should not abandon this concept. This concept holds that a sentence has meaning only if the proposition they express was analytical or being theoretically confirmed.
Verification principle.
Penn 180, Yale 175.
Yes.
All right. Toss of 16. 3 of these beings partook in an inauspicious foot race, after which one was gored by a bull, and another was turned into an ivy plant after climbing a tree. A god once attached symbols to his ship during a long voyage for the sole purpose of waking up one of these beings, or these beings. One of these beings describes Europe, Asia, and Africa as mere islands in a large ocean. One source claims that rather than Athena, it was one of these beings that slew Enceladus, and posits that the rest of the Gigantes were scared away when the animals that these beings arrived with made unusual sounds. Astræus was the chief of a legion of these beings that accompanied an expedition to India. Priapus's rape of Lotus was prevented by
Like a satyr?
Answer the following about, no. Here we go. The literary style associated with this concept is juxtaposed against the style exemplified by Dante that tries to give language physical solidity. White's name this concept that a novelist outlined as the guiding principle in his artistic method in the first of his 6 Methods for the Next Millennium, which he defined as the subtraction of weight.
Lightness.
This Italian author discussed lightness in the first of his North lectures, which he died before delivering. He illustrated lightness in the stories from his collection, Cosmic Comics.
Calvino.
Calvino describes lightness by quoting this poet's aphorism, "One should be light like a bird and not like a feather." This poet collected his sayings in his diaries titled the Papier, and went through the 19-year period of silence when he did not publish any poetry. That's right, 30 points. Toss of 17. Note, type and piece of artist needed. One of these works by this artist shows a woman sitting at a table whose countertop and stools are shaped like tambourines. The artist borrowed a term from Pierre Loti's novel Madame Chrysanthème to title a work in this genre that centers on a young girl wearing a dress with boldly contrasting orange and blue patterns who sits in a cane chair holding an oleander. Another one shows a man who ran a painting supply shop sitting in front of a colorful background of Japanese prints showing kabuki dancers and cherry trees.
Portrait by Van Gogh.
That's right. Your bonus. Answer the following about the uppity Mapuche tribes of Chile for 10 points each. The long-term opposition to Spanish conquest by the Mapuche is referred to as this war, which included battles at Caupolicán and Valladolid. It began with the conquistador Pedro de Valdivia, attempted to invade the amazing area and was killed. We got it. It's the Arauco Wars. This page boy became the greatest chief of the Mapuche during the Arauco War, leading to victory at Tucapel Fort and the siege of Concepcion. His name was later used by Venezuelan revolutionary Francisco de Miranda as the name for a secret society of rational knights that were for independence. That's right. During the wars, the Mapuche destroyed this many Spanish cities south of the Bio River, the same as the number of gold-rich cities of Cibola, which were futilely sought by Coronado. Yeah. 20. Toss of 18. Cuvex contain mRNA for an unusual protein of this kind that is localized to the secretory granules of immune effector cells. Alcium blue is commonly used to stain for these proteins. Swelling pressure and transparency in the cornea mostly depends on the activity of the small, leucine-rich type of these proteins. Tenacin mediates the interaction of different types of yeast proteins in perineuronal nets. Decorin and agrin are two of them that don't follow the usual naming convention of these proteins. Some of these proteins sequester FGFs and TGF-beta, then present the bound molecule to their corresponding receptors. One of these proteins, at a whopping 2,316 amino acids, is one of the largest macromolecules known, and is named for its ability to form 4 millimeter long aggregates. Chondroitin sulfate is usually present in cartilage as part of these proteins. These proteins contain a serine linkage between their two component parts, a whole protein and one or more GAGs.
Yes.
Your bonus. The Rayleigh-Bernard form of this process occurs in the horizontal liquid under the influence of gravity that is heated from below. For example, speech identifies a process which, in the Rayleigh-Bernard situation, results in the formation of closed cells that perform it. This process is the transfer of heat by means of fluid flow.
Like, where the hell is it going after this? Convection.
During Rayleigh-Bernard convection, this quantity undergoes a branching at several critical values of the Rayleigh number. This dimensionless quantity represents a ratio of heat transfer via conduction to the heat transfer via convection.
Is that Frankel or Graham?
It's not. It's graphite. It's not graphite. Graphite.
What's the new cell number?
Oh, yeah.
Convection flow occurs at liquid interfaces as a result of the Marangoni effect, which arises because this quantity is dependent on temperature. That's right. 20 points. Toss-up 19. One character in this novel fixing on the absurdity of an apartment that has 2 lamps in the laboratory and none in the stairs, where people actually bump into one another. At a job interview, the protagonist of this novel bullshits his way through a conversation about Grand Green's the heart of the matter, and later storms out of the meeting yelling, "You may cut off my 2 legs if you find it here again." At the age of 11, the protagonist of this novel feels guilty about participating in wartime propaganda, so he writes a naively apologetic letter to Hitler. In this novel, the attractive secretary Marie Tomlinson spies on the main character for his boss, Mr. Green, and the protagonist first meets his girlfriend on a boat ride returning home from England, where he was studying law on his scholarship. This novel...
No longer at ease.
Nice.
Mr. Green. Your bonus. Name these Dickensian antagonists for 10 points each. This convict was the man who left Miss Havisham at the altar and schemed to steal her inheritance, and he ultimately drowns in the Thames while wrestling Abel Magwitch, when he got arrested.
Compayson.
That's right. This one-eyed character is deported to Australia for trying to hide Madeline Gray's will as revenge against Nicholas Nickleby for rebelling against his harsh regime as schoolmaster of Guildford as well.
Squeers.
Yes. This servant from our mutual friend gets the nickname the Golden Dustman after he inherits his master's fortune through an illegal technicality, but he becomes a miser under the advice of the evil Silas Wegg. Ultimately, he gives his fortune to his rightful heir, Bella Wilfer. We got
Edmund.
Nicodemus Boffin. 20 points. Let's do a score check going into the last hour.
Yale is up by 5, 245 to 240.
245. Okay, all right.
What did you have?
I had 235 for Yale.
Nope.
I probably missed something. Oh yeah, they 30 lightness, right? Yeah. All right.
Okay? Last toss-up. The youngest man ever to hold this political office, allied with Chief Justice David Terry to try to overcome a crisis that started under his predecessor, John McDougall. A period of Republican domination in this office ended with when Frank Merriam was defeated by noted atheist Culbert Olson. Its fourth holder, J. Ely Johnson, was a member of the Know Nothing Party. Merriam defeated a candidate for this office who wrote the book How I Ended Poverty, A True Story of the Future, though after he lost his bid for this office, that man wrote a book subtitled How I Got Licked. That candidate ran on the Epic platform, which made
Governor of California.
Answer the following about the Back to the Land movement for 10 points each. This man's 1907 book, 3 Acres and Liberty, is credited with launching the Back to the Land movement in the United States. This Henry George Disciple founded the New York Tax Reform Association and the community of 3 Acres in New Jersey.
Aldo Leopold.
That's to the Bolton Hall. Charles Tack, a proponent of the movement, founded a commission in 1917 to encourage people to grow tracts of vegetables and fruit in their own backyards or public parks. In order to bolster the public food supply, those tracts were known by this patriotic term.
Victory Gardens.
The movement was torn apart over this 1942 Supreme Court case, which held that the interstate commerce clause allowed the namesake Secretary of Agriculture to penalize the growing of wheat in excess of national quotas, even though the respondent, an Ohio farmer, was only growing the wheat for his personal consumption.
Wallace.
This is Whitmer v. Filbert, 10 points in the bonus, and that's the game.